Rage is a post-apocalyptic FPS developed by id Software and released in 2011 for the PS3 and Xbox 360, and is backwards compatible with the Xbox One. Its sequel released this year, and before taking an in-depth look at it, I thought it would be best to go back and view the original to show the radically different ways these games are designed. I personally enjoy both, and I am fascinated by the changes made because of the different eras they were released in. Because Rage 2 is an open world game, through and through, but the original has open world elements while being a mostly linear experience. The player won't go mission to mission directly, they'll traverse the wasteland in between and have the opportunity to take on side quests and do races, along with other activities like gambling and Mutant Bash TV. This design can either be a strength or a weakness depending on the type of player that you are. If you fall on one of the extremes of enjoying open world games or linear games, then you might be disappointed in the lack of commitment to either side. Those who love open world games will find Rage to be limited. There is little to explore and the game will actively stop you from going off the beaten path. While those who enjoy linear games will be disappointed with how short the game is while sticking to the main story. Despite doing every side quest and race, my playtime is still around 10 to 15 hours. And both sides will be pissed that most side quests recycle the same levels that you go through in the campaign. But there's still enough to enjoy for players who appreciate both. The combat is similar to other shooters of its time in many ways, with regenerating health, small enemy variety, and a pretty standard array of weaponry, with assault rifles, shotguns, and such. But has a few unique ideas such as its variety of tools, unique ammo types, defibrillator, and its best weapon. No, not that one. The Wingstick. Even with the lack of levels, a few of them are pretty substantial, like the Dead City and Prison. Although the combat is good, back-to-back shooting galleries can get tiring. So Rage allows players the option to complete races, drive around the wasteland, and get into some vehicle combat to mix things up. Car combat and racing are fun activities that have an arcadey feel to them, contrasting the more grounded shooting mechanics. And Rage does a good job of incentivizing both car activities. Completing races gives racing certificates that are used for upgrading cars. And in each of the two wastelands, did I mention there are two? There's a character that has a bounty on enemy vehicles and rewards the player for every vehicle destroyed with money and racing certificates. For exploration, there is none, except finding the sewer levels. I think the reason for Rage's half commitment to being an open world game can be attributed to the time in which it came out. Open world games were not as common as they are now. There were still many notable ones such as the ones Bethesda made along with the Assassin's Creed series and GTA, but they are clearly more common now. Linearity certainly has benefits since the developers can be more in control of the experience, and once I get to the sequel, I will show how not having control of the experience can end up damaging the game. And with that look of its open world design out of the way, let's take a closer look at the on-foot combat of Rage, its bread and butter. Like I said earlier, the combat is fairly standard but with unique mechanics. One of these mechanics is the defibrillator. How it works is after you die, you complete a little mini game which determines how much health will be regained. It's easy to get 100% of health returned, and shocks enemies around you. You only start with one charge but increases to 2 shortly after. Even if you don't have any defib charges, you can use bandages which fully restore health and are cheap to buy or make. You'll have to activate them before you die though. I do like these additions to combat, but it comes at the cost of difficulty. Because even on the hardest setting, Rage is easy. An issue that its sequel also has. There is almost no penalty for sloppy pay. What the fuck is sloppy pay? There is almost no penalty for sloppy play, outside of a momentary setback. Getting shot can be repaired easily with bandages. Dying isn't always a fail state since you can come back from it with the defibrillator. And neither of those are even necessary because your health will regenerate anyways. The problems with the combat don't end there unfortunately. A core issue with the combat is the quick select for guns and equipment. For equipment, you have 4 slots that map to the D-pad for easy access. And the guns have 4 slots that you have to select by holding the right bumper and select them with the analog stick. This quick select has 2 issues. 1, it's completely fucking useless. You can use any gun or any equipment at any time, even if it's not in your quick select. By pausing the game, you can even select the ammo type. So if the player can do this, what benefit does the quick select provide? It's certainly better to not have to pause the game constantly and have access to your most used guns/equipment, but the devs have added a trade-off to using the quick select. You only have access to a section of your arsenal. A change that they could have done is have a weapon wheel, like the sequel. You can keep the quick access for equipment but have all of them appear along with the weapons on the weapon wheel and assign them from there, similar to Deus Ex Mankind Divided. That's not a small change, I realize, but would go a long way in helping the combat flow a little bit better. Because there are weapons like the rockets, which are situational, so I constantly had to pause the game, get on my rocket, and then switch back. Speeding that process up would be great, but only if they fix issue 2. The weapon quick access is in real time, so I got shot the fuck up several times while trying to switch weapons. I prefer them to either slow down or stop time. Not finished with the complaining, I'm afraid, because next up is the level design. There is nothing special about most levels. Most levels are linear and set in small, cramped locations with only one path forward. A lot of the earlier levels are like this. You just go from A to B with nothing interesting in between. My favorite levels are the ones that move between different areas, like Dead City, where you start on the ground before it opens up for a mini boss and then some apartment skirmishes. I won't go through the entire section, but my point is the environment in which you're fighting in changes. Even though it's in linear order, those encounters feel different from each other. Credit where credit is due, the levels do get larger the more the game goes on. Back to negatives, I swear there are positives. There also isn't a lot of variety in enemies. Every bandit faction consists of guys with guns, with some that charge at you with melee weapons. The different bandit factions are easily distinguished visually, but not mechanically. The Authority, the other faction you'll be facing, are guys with guns, but with more health and occasionally a shield. One good thing about enemies are their animations. They will clench on the wounds and still move forward, occasionally duck under wingstick throws, and the mutant enemies jump and crawl around all over the place. Alright, let's continue with the positivity. The best combat encounters are the ones where you're encouraged to mix in guns with the tools. The weapons are fairly standard, but their different ammo types allow them to feel unique. Every gun, except the sniper, has a couple of different ammo types, and in the case of the assault rifles, they're just more powerful bullets. The rest are more interesting. The pistol is weak when using standard rounds, but when you load with Fat Boys, it becomes a lot more useful. I wish that the crossbow was used as a standard for ammo types. Each of its ammo types are unique with different purposes. You have your standard rounds, which are useful for stealth. Electro bolts harm enemies in water. You can control enemies and blow them up using the mind control rounds. And the dynamite rounds explode enemies. The crossbow isn't the only weapon with several useful ammo types, because the shotgun is great as well, with its pulse shot and pop rockets. Rage could do better at incentivizing the different ammo types by having more enemies be resistant to standard fire. It does this a bit with some of the mini bosses and the Authority members with shields that can be taken out with electric grenades or pulse shots. But those are the only times I could think of. Most of the time I could get by with one weapon and the occasional wingstick, and sometimes I could get by with just the wingstick. The perfect way they could have tested players is with boss battles that require ammo switching and using all the tools available to you. It's unfortunate that there is only one really boring boss fight in the game right now. Shit, I was supposed to be positive, so let me discuss why I love the wingstick so fucking much. The wingstick is the perfect companion weapon to your arsenal, and is useful in every situation. It can be used at any range, locks on to enemies, and travels towards their heads. It isn't a weapon that has zero skill to it though, since you still need to have the enemy in sight when throwing it. The wingstick also naturally comes back to you like a boomerang, so you have to position yourself in a way to allow it to safely return. And the question that sometimes comes up is why use an ability when you're already aiming at an enemy? The wingstick has an answer for that. When it comes back to you, using it comes at no cost, allowing you to save bullets. Successful hits are almost always an instant kill. And the lock-on means it's effortless to switch targets. The enemy only needs to be in your line of sight for it to work. So basically, the wingstick is perfect. Absolutely perfect. The rest of the tools are not as great as the wingstick, but what is? The problem most of them have is they are situational. Like the RC cars, outside of the mission they are introduced, I never found a reason to use them. And there are ones that give a temporary increase to health, but I never found those necessary, because the game is easy. There are lockpicks that can get you into locked areas, that are always stocked with valuables. All the tools can be easily crafted with materials either found or bought. Speaking of money,
care to browse my selections?
Money in Rage has a purpose. Ammo is scarce and so are resources. Even though the side quests aren't great, they are worth doing for the money. Everything you need will have to be bought. You can scavenge for items, but it's likely not going to be enough. Side note, who likes doing this? Seriously, who enjoys going up to every single bandit after you kill them, one by one, and groping their dead bodies for bullets? Cause I think it sucks. Alright, back to the discussion. All upgrades must be bought, like armor and weapon upgrades. Armor upgrades increase your armor, and weapon upgrades vary from gun to gun. They can be scopes for the pistol, more rounds for the shotgun, or increased stability for the assault rifles. Most schematics for new equipment or upgrade versions of your equipment are purchased at vendors, so you likely won't be stockpiling money for no reason, and any activity that rewards it becomes more enticing. Now with that out of the way, let's get into the open world aspects of the game, namely the cars, since the side quests are not worth discussing at all. All of the side quests come down to going back to previously cleared out areas and fighting the same guys again, or protecting someone while sniping. Neither of which are terrible, while the escort sniping missions can be pretty annoying. The cars are the opposite of the on-foot movement. Your movement feels grounded and heavy on foot, while the cars feel weightless. I feel like that's backwards. Everything you do in cars from fighting to driving feels arcadey. Your weapons lock on automatically, and there are a few items you can use, like shields, armor restoration, and mines to name a few. There are also encounters that reward money after destroying all targets, along with times where Feltrite, a very valuable item, rings down, giving you an opportunity to collect some. Next up, races. There are 3 types: a time trial, typical races, and rocket rallies. Time trials ask you to finish the race within the time limit. The standard races come in 3 flavors: non-combat, machine gun, and rocket races. The only change is which, if any, weapon you start off with. Other than that, the course remains the same. Rocket rallies are different. Your target is a moving goal that changes every time someone touches it, and moves in a fixed pattern. To win, you need to score points by hitting this goal or destroying other vehicles. Touching the goal gets you more points. Since this goal doesn't move in a strictly linear way, being ahead of everyone for the first few goals can completely fuck you over once it changes to a spot behind you. Recognizing the pattern is key to victory. The races take a large amount of content in Rage. Nearly all of them are optional though. There are only like 3 that you have to do for story progression. Most of them are fun. A few of the rocket rallies can suck a dick, but most of them are fun. Completing them all ensures you will have enough certificates to buy all upgrades, which leads me to one of the issues the upgrades have. There aren't a lot of them, and it makes more sense to save up for the highest ones since those are by far the best. They could have included more customization options for your vehicles since there are only 2 options. All that's left is the story, and I'm not going to bother going through all of it, just the important bits, in order to set the stage for the sequel. There was a meteor that was set to collide with the Earth. This meteor is what starts the apocalypse. Before the meteor was set to collide with the Earth, there were several people that were chosen to be put into arks, which were buried deep underground. You play as an ark survivor, the only survivor within your ark. There is an evil organization called the Authority that controls the world, allegedly, and you join in the resistance against them. You kill a lot of people, and in the end you storm the Authority base and unleash all the arks that have yet to be activated. And then the game fucking ends. That was an extremely quick summary of the story, but there isn't a lot to discuss. The games are directly tied into each other since the main characters you meet in the first game return in the sequel. Rage is a solid game and still worth playing. If you can get it for cheap, I recommend playing it. It holds up pretty well mechanically and visually. There are games that are better at both now, but that doesn't change the fact that Rage is fun and worth your time. Combat is enjoyable even with its issues. The moment-to-moment gameplay is fun. The Wingstick remains as one of the best secondary weapons in an FPS, and there are a lot of different races along with car combat to keep players interested. Alright, that's all for me. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed it, and next up is a sequel, and I'm looking forward to that one. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Check out my other videos, and I'll see you in the next one.